Hi guys, welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about invoicing in Xero. So we're going to go through entering sales invoices, some tips and tricks, and we're also going to go through entering all your purchases in as well. That's the main area we're going to focus on today, and so I'll take you through that. So first of all, to get to the sales area, I was going to start with the sales invoices. There's always a couple of ways to get there. Number one is if you're in the dashboard, you can very simply just click Add Sales Invoice. Number two, you can actually just go into accounts and go into your sales ledger. Now once that opens up, you'll see a couple of different options there, and I'll run through these, the draft, awaiting approval, awaiting payments, and overdue. But first of all, we'll go through how to enter an invoice. So we simply click New Invoice, and that'll open up a blank template. Put in the contact the person I'm billing. Now this is the demo company, so we'll just see what kind of names are in there. Tracy Green will do. Put in the date of the invoice. Now you can type in the date or whatever it may be. The other option is if you're just dating it for today, you can just write a T and then tab, and that'll put today's date in. If your terms are 14 days, we can go T plus 14, and it's a bit of a quick way to enter in those dates there. Obviously, if you're entering different dates, then you can actually override that and type in whichever date you need to. The invoice number, that'll automatically generate, so we don't have to touch that at all. That'll generate from the background settings. You can see invoice branding is standard, and I'll touch on that in a sec. We come down to your description. Okay, and basically just put in what it relates to. The number, we need to put in a quantity for this, your unit price, and the account that it's going to go to.
I can't hear anybody.
Okay, so I've got the account selected. Okay, once you're happy with the GST code as well, then we can click Approve. Now you can see here at the moment I've got the amounts are tax exclusive, which means whatever amount I type in here, it's going to actually add GST on top of that. And generally when you're entering your sales invoices, you would keep it on this tax exclusive. So put in the amount that you want to receive, then the system will calculate the GST for you, and that'll add the GST on top. Now, if you're happy with this invoice, we've got a description in there, we've got a quantity, the amount, and what account it's going to. We can click Approve. Once you've approved this invoice, you've got a couple of different options to send that out to your clients. So number one is you can go print PDF, and it'll generate an invoice for you to send out an email. The other option is you can click Email straight from here. We'll have some standard text in there, and you can basically just send it straight to that person. Now you'll see up here it's asking me for an email address. The reason is that Tracy Green, this contact, we actually haven't updated the email address details, the demo company. If your contact details are up to date, then the email address will automatically populate, and we'll have Tracy there at her email address. Then we can simply just click Send from there. So that is your basic sales invoice. There's a couple of different options we can do. I'll just go back to the start again. So that's entering in a basic invoice. Some other options you've got with the sales invoices, you can actually do repeating invoices as well. So for example, we've got a client who's a landscaper, and they generally invoice certain companies every single month on the month. And what you can also do is set up a new repeating invoice. So this is not for everyone. It'll depend on how you invoice your clients, but this is an option to save you some time. So you can select a new repeating invoice. Tell the system how often you want this to repeat. So we'll have this repeat every single month. The first invoice I want to go out is on the 1st of July. Now it's telling me that this date has already occurred, so it'll generate one for me. The due date, I want that to be 14 days after the invoice. End date is optional, so when I want this repeating invoice to end. I'll put in the contact. Stick with Tracy. Okay. Put in the description. The amount. Okay, and then I'll click, just before I click Save, I've got all my details in there. It's now asking me if I want to save this as a draft, approve it, or approve and send. And so what that means is, if you've got a client that's always a regular amount and you're invoicing them every month, you might be so bold just to click approve and send, and what that will do is it will automatically generate the invoice on the 1st of the month, and it will send it out to the client automatically. If you wanted to make changes and just want the repeating invoice to come up, you could save it as a draft or have it automatically approve as well. So for this one, I'm just going to click Save as Draft and click Save. Now, because this is a repeating invoice and I've asked for the first one to come on the 1st of July, fingers crossed I should have one in my draft invoices waiting to be approved. So if I just click on Draft Invoices, and there's Tracy Green there. So for those guys that are doing regular invoices, and the invoice descriptions basically stay the same, but the amounts might change, you might want to make use of this repeating function so it'll automatically generate the invoice for you. So if I just click onto this one, I can go in there, check what I want. I'm going to change the amount, click Approve. That invoice will get approved, and then on the 1st of August, next month, it'll automatically generate another draft invoice for me. So just going back into the sales area. So there are your two main options. You've got new invoice, and we've went through the basics of how to enter that invoice. You can also do a new repeating invoice as well. Some other options, if we have some clients that have some regular descriptions that they put onto their invoices, there's a couple of different options here. So for example, if every single invoice always has labor, installation, products, etc., and you don't want to have to keep typing that all out, there is an option to go into General Settings. And I'll go into the General Settings, then I'll just have a look at inventory items. So Xero does have inventory items in the system. It doesn't have stock control. It'll basically just record how many items you've purchased and how many items you've sold, but it won't do the complete stock control function. But what it is really handy for is predetermined invoice descriptions. So for example, this one here is item code. I can set that one up, dev D, and it has a description predetermined for me and a predetermined sales amount as well. And so this description could be any of your invoice descriptions. And so the idea of this is to save you time and having to re-enter all the detail on the invoice. You can have some predetermined invoice descriptions. So if I go back into accounts, go into sales, new invoice. I'm going to hammer Tracy again. Okay, and just see down these item codes, you could use these as invoice descriptions. So saving you having to enter all that data, then you can come across, change the value that you need to, bring in your next standard invoice description, have your invoice description, don't have to type that out again, change the amounts if you need to. Once I'm happy with the invoice, then I can click Approve. Okay, and there's the basics of entering your sales invoices. You can see down the bottom here that once I actually enter this invoice, it's saying down the bottom here, make a payment. And so it's basically, do you want to apply a payment to the invoice? I strongly suggest you never ever use this function down here, make a payment. Whenever you're reconciling your invoices that are outstanding and reconciling the payments, I'd suggest never do it through this function here. Actually always do it through the bank rec. So once the person actually pays, go into your bank rec, click on Find and Match, and then find the invoice that way to apply the payment. I strongly suggest never actually do it through this function down the bottom of the invoice. I'll just take you back in there. Yep, never down here. Always rec through the bank account. So that's the basics of your sales invoices. So you can see that you can enter a basic invoice in. You can enter repeating invoices if you've got regular clients and you're invoicing them regular. You can also go into settings, inventory items, and set up some default invoice descriptions as well, just to try and cut down on that time that you spend actually preparing the invoices. Now, you've got a range of themes as well. You can see this one's on a standard theme. I'll just take you into the general settings, into the, pardon me, into the invoice settings. You do have the option to set up your own invoice if you like. So this is just the standard Xero invoice. We've got some standard details there, contact details, a logo, and you can also go in there and edit some of these features as well. So what an approved invoice, what the title will be, where the payment services, the terms and conditions, etc. And you can alter that as well. If you're not happy with the layout of the standard invoice, you also have the option of setting up a custom Docx invoice, which basically means I set this new branding theme up. Okay, and it gives me the option to then download all these templates into Word, and then in Word I can make changes, make it look pretty if I like, and then re-upload it back into the system, and that can become the invoice template as well. So for example, if you've got different clients and you want to use different branding or different wording on the invoices, you can set them up in the background. Then when you come to do your new invoice, just simply choose the type of branding that you want to use. Okay, now I'm just going to have a look. We've got a couple of questions come through, so I'll see if I can try and knock off a couple of those. Okay, I'll come back to some of these questions at the end as well. So that's basically your sales invoices. So we've gone through just how to enter them, the basics, and how to do some repeating invoices. I'll just quickly touch on sending statements and credit notes, and then we'll move into the invoicing for purchases as well. So for example, if I have an invoice in the system and that I've got an amount in there for $550, but it needs to be credit noted out, what I'll need to do is then add a credit note to this amount. So for example, Hamilton Smith, we've got due $550, he wasn't happy with the service, so he wants a reduction. We're going to give him a credit note. If I go into the invoice, okay, I'll go invoice options. Sorry, hang on. That's in my draft ones. Let's go to approve one, sorry. So for example, let's use Tracy Green. So I go invoice options, add a credit note. The system will automatically reverse this for you. So what it's done is it's basically going to negative out the entire amount, and it's going to negative out towards sales. So if you choose the sales account, basically my sales will go from up 600 and then down whatever I actually credit note. If you actually want to record what's actually happening and how many credit notes you're issuing or whether it's a bad debt, you can actually change this account on your P&L and use a different one. Now just bear in mind this is the demo account, so I'm just going to choose anything here. But for example, bad debts or anything like that, I'm just going to choose general expenses so I can record exactly what I've credit noted throughout the year. Just put in the date that you're recognizing that credit note, okay, and then type in the amount. So we're happy to give her a $100 plus GST reduction, and so that will actually credit note that amount there. I'll just click approve. And so now this invoice ORC 1041, it's now showing as a total of $660 less my credit note. And so now the amount due is actually $550. Okay, back into the invoices. Statements, really, really easy through Xero. So as opposed to trying to print off statements and sending them out, all I really need to do is come into accounts, go into sales, which I'm here now, click on send statements, select the people that I want to send statements to, select the period that I'm going to send it for, and then simply click email. It will come up. You can see with these contact details, everyone has their emails in there. It's got some standard text in there, which we can change if you like. And then basically I just click send, and then it'll send out all the statements and all the amounts that are outstanding at that point. Okay, back in the sales area, I'll just show you quickly. I'll go to accounts sales to bring this up. So draft invoices, they're for invoices that you click save as draft as opposed to approve, and some clients do like to use that. If one person is preparing the invoices but someone else needs to review it, you may choose to actually do a new invoice, save it as a draft, and have someone else come along and approve it so they can look at the final wording and then send it off is one option. Awaiting approval, very similar to draft, that you can put it to awaiting approval and the person who needs to sign off on it, pardon me, needs to sign off and come off and approve it. The next tab, awaiting payment, these are all the invoices that you prepared. Okay, repeating invoices we touched on earlier on is basically any of those ones that you've got regular clients that you're invoicing once a month or once a fortnight. You can see those templates there and make any changes that you need to. So that is the basics of sale invoices. I think the main thing to take out of that is to, if you do have lengthy descriptions, use that inventory items to cut down the time there. Definitely get all the email contacts set up so you can send the statements straight from there. We've gone through how to do the credit notes, and we've also just touched on how to actually reconcile those invoices, and very important to do that through the bank rec and not in the actual invoice. We'll go into purchases. Purchase is almost identical to the sales. There's a couple of little neat things in there that we'll go through. So basically on new invoice, Same sort of thing, I can do a new bill or I can do a new repeating bill. So for example, if you're entering your Telstra invoices once a month, you may like to do a repeating bill, and when you do the repeating bill, you can save it as a draft, which will allow you then to go in there and override the number because it'll obviously change each month. The other option is you can have, pardon me, you can have a repeating bill for your rent. So you can set that up. That one's always going to be a regular amount. So you can set that one up to auto approve, and that'll automatically generate that invoice for you. So there's no need to actually enter the invoice each month, and just cut down that time as well. I'll go into new bill. Very similar to the sales. So we'll just put in the contact's name, the date, when it's due. Now, for your purchase invoices, I suggest that, the reference number will be your invoice number on that supplier invoice. Okay, put in the description, the amount, the account that you want it to go to. Okay, and then it'll calculate for you. Now, you can see on here it's got amounts of tax exclusive. I probably suggest to make this tax inclusive, because generally when you're entering your purchase invoices, you just put the total in, and what the system will do is it'll work out how much GST is within that amount as opposed to adding it on top. So generally the purchases, I'd probably suggest going with tax inclusive. So you put in your amount. If I put in $5.50, it should work out $50 of GST, because it's working out how much GST is within that amount, because I've selected that tax inclusive. Once you're happy with the invoice, we can then click approve. Now, one really neat thing in the system is this ability to upload files. So at the moment, I know a lot of clients, they're saving all the hard copies of the invoices and filing them away. What you can do in Xero is you can actually scan all those into PDF. Then when you enter the invoice in, you click on here and you can upload a file from your desktop or from wherever you've got your saved PDFs, and actually put the hard copy of the invoice behind the electronic copy. Some people find it handy in terms of if there's a bookkeeper entering all the invoices, but there's a director that wants to review certain things, he can come in and have a look at some of these bills, and then if he's not happy with the amount, which he probably won't be, then he can actually go into the electronic copy of the actual physical invoice straight in from Xero and have a look exactly what's on that invoice from there. So if I'm happy with this invoice, got the date right, I've got my invoice number correct, then I can click approve. This invoice number is really important, because if I try to enter that exact number again, the system will actually give me a warning and say, hey, you've already got an invoice for that number in here, just to help you out, to make sure you're not actually double entering any of your purchases in. So I'm happy with that one. Again, I've got this make a payment down the bottom there. Again, I'd really strongly suggest not to use this function. That's always reconcile your billables through the bank rec. Okay, so I've got my invoice in, I'm happy with that, and that's going to go into my purchases area. So once I've finalized that one, it's going to be now appearing in my awaiting payment. And there's my test invoice there, and these are all the ones that are outstanding here. For the people who are managing purchases and managing cash flow, this is really handy when you come to these purchases to actually use some of these drop downs, and we can basically just filter by due date, and I can pick up which invoices I want to pay first. One other really good thing in the system is you can do batch files from Xero, and basically what that is an electronic file which allows me to pay multiple people. So I tick off all the people that I want to pay, and then it allows me to upload that file into my internet banking and pay everyone at once. So basically, if I logged in this morning, I want to pay some people, I don't want to pay everyone, go into my awaiting payment. These are all the invoices that are outstanding. These are the ones that I pretty much should pay now because they're overdue. I tick all of these. I click batch payment. Click OK. Okay. Payment date, when I'm going to pay it, and you can future date these as well and load them into your bank account, so it's all done. Details, payables, and then it'll list all the different people I'm paying and all the bank account details. Now, because this is the demo, some of the bank account details are missing, and it won't let you upload it unless you've got all the bank details in there. So once I have all the details right, I'm happy with when it's going out. Click Make Payments. Okay, this prepares a batch file. So from here I can export this batch file, which is an electronic file, save it to my desktop, then go into my internet banking, select multi-payment transfer, and upload that file and pay everyone at once. Once I'm happy with that, I can then send remittances to my suppliers. Again, these email addresses aren't set up, so you need to make sure in your contacts you've got it all set up. But once you have all the email addresses in, you can then click send. So it really does streamline that whole process of paying your purchases and keeping on top of things as well. So just to recap, we went into accounts, purchases, we entered our new invoices in, and I can do repeating bills like I touched on. Once I've got all my details in, I've got the option to actually upload the physical bill as well, which will be really handy for the accountants. In case we ever get audited, we can just log straight in and grab all the hard copies that we need. It'll save your filing cabinet. Once you've got everything in there, you can select approve. You can also go for save as draft or save and submit for approval if someone else needs to review it. Once you've got your invoices in terms of paying them is really simple as well. We just go into awaiting payment, select the invoices that you want to pay. I strongly suggest you use these batch file payments because it just makes life really easy, especially if we've got a lot of payables to make. We don't want to be spending hours there writing checks or doing individual transfers. Just select all the payments that you want to make, select batch payment. Okay, populate all the details that you need to here. Upload the batch file to your banking, and then you can send an email remittance as well. And it really just streamlines that whole process of ticking them off. Once all these payments go out, there's 4793. It'll actually create a transaction waiting for the actual payment to come out. So you can see here that one we did earlier, the payment multiple items. There it is there waiting to be ticked off. Okay, very similar to sales. We've got draft invoices there. You've got awaiting approval, awaiting payment, and anything that's overdue as well. So very similar to sales. You can set up repeating bills if you need to. You can also set up some draft ones in there to copy also. Another neat thing that Xero's brought in is purchase orders now. So purchase orders basically gives you the opportunity to enter in a purchase order, and then you can send it off to your supplier. And then once that purchase order has actually been received by your supplier, they send the goods, send you an invoice. You can then convert this purchase order into an invoice as well. So depending on client to client, depends on who's using purchase orders, but it is quite handy if you're having to order through your suppliers and actually tick off exactly what they give you as well. I'll just quickly go through. I'll use this draft one. So I've got a draft purchase order in here. So it's got all the details in there, who the contact is, what I'm trying to order here. Getting some golf balls, hit a few into the trees. I'm happy with all the details that are in there. I can approve that. Okay, and once I go back into my purchase orders, once I actually receive those goods and the invoice comes in, I can go into the purchase order and click mark as billed, and it'll actually allow me to then create an invoice and enter the details from there. Not everyone's going to use purchase orders. It depends on client to client, but if this is something you need, definitely make use of the purchase order function in there as well. Okay, so that is our basics of entering the invoices for purchases and sales. Like I said, the main advantages with your sales invoices, trying to use those repeating invoices as much as possible, using the inventory items to come up with some default invoice descriptions. That'll save you a lot of time. Get everyone's email address and email them statements and streamline that whole process for you. A reminder too, just to make sure when you're reconciling the sales payments to do that through the bank rec as well, never at the bottom of the invoice. On the purchases side, we went through entering a new invoice, went through entering repeating invoices as well. You probably want to make use. There is a little bit of extra work involved in putting in the invoice behind the electronic copy, but it definitely makes for good records, and for people who need to review those invoices and see what exactly going out, it's actually a pretty good feature there. Strongly suggest that you use batch files and get that set up and start paying your suppliers as multiple payments, just to cut down the time that you have to actually reconcile and transfer those funds and write checks, etc. If you use that batch files, you can email remittance, so no one should miss exactly what payments you're making, and so we should be able to save quite a bit of time in processing payables and processing your sales as well. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick look at some of these questions. Hopefully I can answer them. I've got a question here. How do I enter cash on delivery invoices with the options you have set up? If I put 0 days after invoice in the contact record, it doesn't seem to hold. Okay, so I think we're referring to the repeating invoices. So if you're doing repeating invoices for cash on delivery, if we're doing a repeating invoice and you want it to be the same terms, you can just set that for 1 day after, and that should solve the issue for that one. Okay, can we group inventory items? So service call, labor, shop, so we can enter one item entry. If you wanted to do it that way, if you're looking for one line entry, then you'd have to set up one inventory line and then put the entire description under that inventory line. So I'll just quickly go through that. So inventory items, add item, and we're basically going to use this for invoice templates. Then write everything you need to, all the description in there. If you want to take even more of a shortcut, you can predetermine the sales account, click save, and then we'll have that entire description in there for you. Okay, next question. Can my PO number be automatically referenced on a bill? I don't believe it will be, but we can enter that into the reference number as well. Just checking if we have any more. Okay guys, that's it for the questions. So feel free to go through, log into your Xero account. You can use your demo accounts and go through entering those sales. I hope you pick up some little tips and tricks to make life a little bit easier. If you are having issues, you can always refer back to the Help Center and just go enter an invoice, and this can always help you out. We've got really detailed descriptions of how to do things, and they can take you through that as well. But I'm hoping today that that'll hopefully save you a little bit of time also. So if you have any issues, feel free to contact your accountant. If you're looking to sign up on Xero, please get in touch with us. And just a reminder for some of our existing clients, we've got our upcoming bootcamp on the 14th of August. So if anyone is keen to sign up and come along to that, could they please email Brennan Care or give us a call at the practice on 8888 4000. Okay guys, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you next month. Cheers.